Hey, what's good, dog? Today I have come out of the blue to look at some horrible mental health advice. So recently I have come across this Instagram page called The Chronic Notebook. It's full of woke and blue-pilled advice or information based on, social constructs. This may easily be my most controversial video so far. Even more controversial than my last video calling Polo G and Kanye West trash. If it isn't obvious, I have opinions, and you may also have some slightly different opinions. Now, I'm here to express those opinions because you all like to express opinions, right? And I need a video idea because I haven't uploaded in over 3 months. So let's see what we're dealing with today. Nia, the chronic notebook, she, her. Here to smash societal stigmas about chronic illness and disability.
What do you mean by that?
We are worthy, not broken. But without further ado, let's look at all these posts, shall we? Oh my goodness gracious. Honestly, mate, where do I even start? Let's start off with the most important ones. Mental health advice and information. The grief of chronic illness and disability you don't see. A thread. Alright, this should be epic and life-changing and impactful for my eyes and mind. Grieving the healthy life you had and not being symptomatic or in pain. Pretty reasonable. Grieving the life you might have had, the things you might have done or experienced without your condition. Grieving being able to trust your own body and its ability to function well. Okay. Grieving being able to, yes, to career and other opportunities you find exciting. I don't even know what that means. Grieving the friendships, relationships, and people you lost, even if they were misunderstanding. Relatable. Grieving the loss of your independence, financial security, and parts of your identity. I'm a minor. This is not relatable. Grieving hobbies and activities you used to be able to do more easily. Reading, crafts, sports, exercise, music, gaming, cooking, and more. I mean, kind of. Like, I played the flute for like a week when I was 10 and I really hated it, and I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore, so I don't know. Grieving your old body and the way it used to look due to surgery, scars, medical devices, weight changes. I mean, that's pretty basic, like, thing to grieve about. Like, you can be overweight and just be like, oh man, I wish I was skinnier like I was when I was 12. And it's like, what is this post even for? Is this for 5-year-olds that just learned what mental health meant? Grief is one of the toughest emotions for someone with an illness or disability. Unlike other grief, it doesn't happen in 5 stages, but is a continual process. People can grow around their grief, but there are days where it's really hard no matter how long it's been. That's okay. People can grow around their grief, but there are days where it's really hard no matter how long it's... I literally can't read this. I'm not even gonna try anymore. Guess what? You're ableist, because you're making this way too difficult for me to read, because I have a reading disability. Alright? You stinky motherfucker. Come on. So this is a pretty basic post that you can see around on this Instagram page. However, this is not as impactful and meaningful as a lot of the other ones. As you will see, there will be some very strange and specific things that are going to be covered in these specific posts here. What is this? The overwhelming majority of chronic illness and disability advocates are white.
Hey, what's up?
Here's why that's a bigger problem than you think. Oh, this should be amazing. If right now you searched for advocates on social media, in the charity sector, or in the media, the majority would be white rather than BIPOC-led. The work white, disabled, and chronically ill advocates do is important, valuable, and appreciated. But we massively lack BIPOC insight. Okay. Currently, BIPOC people feel less able to identify and connect with these advocacy movements. This is a big issue. We need everyone to be seen, represented, and heard. Nobody is saying that the white, chronically ill, and disabled perspective means less, or that it isn't vital. Nobody is saying that a white person's disability or chronic illness is less painful or easier to live with in itself. I think I've read enough. You see, with Instagram accounts like this where they tackle the race war or whatever, they put a lot of meaning and emphasis on the fact that everything shouldn't just be white people. Which, of course, like, not everything's gonna be just white people doing stuff or representing themselves. But when they see one organization where they see the littlest amount of black people or something, they find themselves having an aneurysm and just, end up complaining about it and saying that they're a racist company, they're an ableist company, especially in a workforce where they're very particular with the kinds of people that they hire. That gives these woke and blue-pilled people so much room to just easily say, oh, they're racist because they're only hiring cis straight white men. which that isn't it at all. The reason why there's so many white people in an IBM facility is because they happen to hire a big group of people for a massive project where little to none of them are a minority. It's literally not that deep. And then some companies will take that criticism and then start hiring minorities that don't even know how to do their job right. Not to say all minorities don't know how to put in a good work effort. In vital business environments, you got to be very particular with who you hire, and you can't just hire people just because of their race or schmexual preference. Which, by the way, they all complain about discrimination and all that, when really, they're encouraging discrimination for white people because they're not going to hire a bunch of white people because there's not enough black people on their team. And that's discrimination, and I think it's illegal. TLDR. So you're not just going to get these free privileges just because you're mentally ill or you're a minority of any kind. And with this situation on BIPOC Insight and mentally ill advocates that are mostly white, why does it matter that the color of their skin is the same color of a slightly burnt marshmallow? Aren't you all the ones preaching that everyone's the same and everyone is capable of doing anything they want? This is just more discrimination, really. It's not as obvious and it's kind of hidden. That's how they get away with this and nobody's ballsy enough to call them out. Because then they're going to turn around and say, so you're racist then, is that what you're telling me? And now let's move on to this post. Signs of medical trauma that you may not realize you have. A thread on this very real disorder. Yes, it is a very real disorder. But peep this one. Feeling nervous and sick to the stomach every time you have a medical appointment. That is normal anxiety. Next one. Feeling depleted, numb, or emotionally distressed after doctor's visits, no matter how well they went. That is normal stress from having to go to so many doctor's visits. Having flashbacks to times when you were hospitalized or had invasive procedures and tests. Not the most stupid take, but let's move on. Questioning if your pain is bad enough to go to the doctors due to being disbelieved and invalidated in the past. Again, normal anxiety. It's not that deep. Mentally going through all the worst things a doctor might say or do during a visit and how you could respond. Anxiety. Feeling the need to plan extensively for every medical visit in case something goes wrong. OCD. Anxiety. Constantly being in tune to your body as you're afraid of an escalation in your symptoms and need for emergency treatment. I don't know what I just read. Avoiding TV programs, films, news reports, environments, and conversations that remind of you of the past of medical events. Possibly PTSD and trauma. This one's kind of valid and realistic. Let's move on. Not feeling safe or comfortable visiting doctors alone or without a chaperone or loved one. Anxiety. This post is trying to convince people that they have medical trauma. And a lot of people reading this might read one slide on here that applies to them and they're like, oh my gosh, I have medical trauma. I never even realized. If you actually had medical trauma, you would have known beforehand. They're pretty much twisting the word of trauma and just combining it with anxiety. Like if you have anxiety, you possibly have trauma over something. Yes, but actually no. It really depends on who it is. Like you could develop anxiety or, from trauma of a past experience. But this post is being put out into the general public. And so it's saying if you have any sort of anxiety over any of these scenarios, then you have medical trauma. It doesn't flat out say that, but that's pretty much what people are going to perceive it as. And in fact, that's probably what the person posting this believes. So what about this next post? Stigmas on talking about chronic illness and disability that needs to stop. A thread. It's attention seeking. It's not about attention. It's about awareness and understanding. That depends on who it is that's venting about their chronic illness. A lot of people can do it for attention because it makes them feel better. And depending on the situation, that can be kind of a bad thing because you're asking for sympathy while exaggerating your chronic illness. But if your chronic illness is what you make it out to be, then okay, cool. And on top of that, yes, it is about awareness and understanding. But saying that it's not about attention, possibly 100% of the time, is just very brain dead and probably hypocritical. It's complaining. It's actually sharing difficult aspects of a valid lived experience. That's complaining with extra steps. It's negative. Talking about the tough parts isn't negative. It's necessary for change. Okay, if it's necessary for change, why can't it be negative? I don't understand how you made the connection that it's just necessary for change and it doesn't have anything to do with negativity. Of course it's connected to negativity because you're talking about bad stuff that are happening in your life and the fact that your chronic illness is bad and it's stressful. What are you trying to say? It's an attack on non-disabled people. It's not an attack. It's invitation to consider ableism and new perspective. What? Okay, I agree it's not an attack. But to shed light on ableism? I literally don't get either of these claims. This is all so stupid. I don't know how to explain why it's stupid. That's how stupid it is. I don't know. It's depressing. That's because illness and disability are always made out to be inherently sad. There can be joy in learning in these discussions too. Okay, what did you just say 2 slides ago? Talking about the tough parts isn't negative, it's necessary for change. So, is it being depressing necessary for change? Is the depressing tone of a topic not negative? It can totally be negative. Not all the time, however, but saying that it's just never going to be negative. This slide is pretty much contradicting what she said like 2 slides ago. And yes, negativity and depressing are 2 different words. The way she defines depressing is that they're always made out to be inherently sad, but there can be joy in learning in these discussions too. So doesn't that mean that there's some negativity to all of this? Sure, you can learn from it, but people naturally learn from negativity all the time. What are you saying? It's someone's whole personality. Talking about it doesn't overtake every other aspect of someone's personhood. This is true, but when people say that it's someone's whole personality, they're referring to the fact that whenever they talk to a specific someone that has a chronic illness, it's all they talk about, and so that's all they know about them. Basically, what you're supposed to take from someone saying that is don't constantly complain about your chronic illness to the same people over and over. Like maybe talk about how your weekend was and don't focus on the fact that your BF broke up with you. But TLDR, don't be annoying with venting about your chronic illness. It's too awkward. It can be hard, but if it's uncomfortable, it's because it challenges what you know and it's not spoken about enough. This one's kind of a 50-50. Yes, discussions like these can be awkward. Yes, it challenges what you know. But the way she says not spoken about enough, I'm just concerned that this might encourage a lot of the people reading these to go out of their way and be annoying with venting about their chronic illness. That's kind of all I gotta say. I can't really say too much on this. It's just woke. Progressive conversations around social issues and equality are not a bad thing. Inherently, yes, they're not a bad thing. But when you're posting stuff like this, that's when it becomes a bad thing. Talking about chronic illness or disability is not a bad thing. It's an important conversation that's long overdue. Please listen. Sure, you can easily say that. Yeah, whatever. Overall, this post in particular is very brainless. It lacks understanding among the point of view of the opposing party, being the top text here, and then the bottom text being the woke response. To make a valid argument, you need to be able to understand the other side of the argument that you're making claims against. You need to not be so quick with making these conclusions or claims, or the rate of anyone taking you seriously in the argument will significantly drop. That is, if those people are intelligent. Am I automatically saying that I'm intelligent? No, I'm just stating my opinion. And I was open about that in the beginning of this video. It's pretty safe to say that there's no real conclusion to any of this when it comes to mental health advice, or what should or shouldn't be talked about among chronic illness. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really hurt anyone no matter what route you take, right? It really comes down to what kind of opinion you have. And the opinion I have is that I don't like this and I think this is stupid. And so that gives anyone that doesn't agree with me plenty of room to express that they don't agree with me. I have many friends that strictly believe in woke and blue-pilled ideologies that are littered throughout this entire Instagram page. Do I think less of them as a person? Kind of. Do I see them less as a friend? No. It's just I avoid talking about social climate stuff around them, really. Today in society, we put a lot of meaning on labels. And so that leads to a lot of conflict when you're one label and not the other. You can get made fun of for having the wrong zodiac sign. You get hung after voting for Lincoln. You get bullied into suicide at 11 years old for simply being a male. Overall, you're simply dehumanized for having the wrong beliefs. And that's all they are, beliefs. You're not hurting anyone for having a specific opinion. But some people in the world take it very seriously. And so that leads them to easily say that their claims are 100% correct and the people that don't agree should be hung. If they believe in violence, that is. So, should have Will Smith slapped Chris Rock after Chris Rock made fun of his wife for being bald? That concludes today's video. Sorry I was gone for 3 months. I took a break because, personal reasons. I'm gonna continue doing, lower quality videos like this for a little bit just so I can make up for the months that I was gone. My goal is to upload every week or two so I can finally catch up on everything and then finally get back to doing higher quality videos. I want to do another documentary at some point, just like my Fortnite and VR chat video. Follow all the social media, new second channel video. Bye bye.